Hello, hello. Let's make sure this is all coming together. See if it's all coming through. And then we can get started. Cool. This looks relatively stable on Twitch. It's looking good on YouTube. Pretty pleased with that. Perfect. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to work on today and have a little bit of fun with, and I've kind of already got it somewhat in play, is playing with depth of field for this kind of far in the distance part of the game, giving it a little bit of that Octopath Traveler vibe. Also, I think from a gameplay perspective, it focuses the attention of the player onto what's happening in their play space without overwhelming with too much clarity in the distance, if that makes sense. Also, it is something we can turn on and off. So if I go here and I just play with the bloom volume, we can turn our depth of field on and off and see the difference. So it does just give a little bit of a more cinematic feel to the game, which I think can be appreciated. And yeah, I wanted to kind of mess with these settings and see how it looks in different situations. One thing that was suggested was using both the depth of field and the fog, which I've got going on here. You can actually turn the fog off as well. So if we go here, we can turn the fog off like this, and then you get the entire game view coming in. So when you do this, you really get the sense of scale, because you can see literally the entire game. One of the advantages of doing such a kind of low pixel, low poly gameplay style is we can literally have the entire game world of an MMORPG basically, like in play. Without hitting performance. And if you put the depth of field, I think it does help, especially when you look from this direction, because in the distance you get the mountains. Whereas if you turn the depth of field off, and you keep no fog, I mean, again, it's cool that you can see everything, but it can be a little bit overwhelming because it's kind of in perfect clarity. So it's like everything here is just as clear as everything here, even though it's incredibly far away. The other thing that messes with it is the anti-aliasing, which is a bit of a struggle, to be totally honest, at the moment. Because I think temporal AA gets a bad rep and is quite performance intensive. I'm using temporal AA here. As you can see, I'll explain why very shortly, but the worst problem I'm getting is this kind of slight flickering in the end, which MIP maps can deal with that, but we'll speak about that in a second. But for example, if I go to our camera settings and I change it from TAA to no AA, this is what the game looks like with no AA, where everything's rendered and there's no MIP maps. So the first thing you'll notice, like when I'm standing still like this, it's kind of fine, except there's like a lot of pixely traditional aliasing and that kind of jaggedness that you can see on the edge here. And then the other problem is that when I move, you can see you get this jaggedness basically everywhere and it kind of flickers. Now, the issue is the other anti-aliasing, like fast approximate or subpixel have the same problem, and they create this. Can you see this kind of banding effect that's happening over there? So my issue here is this banding that is occurring, and interestingly enough, TAA actually fixes this. MIP also fixes this, but MIP has a different issue, specifically for this game. So the problem with TAA is that it's more performant, but as you can see, it actually solves the two previous issues, but it gives us a third issue with a slight flicker in the far end there from a graphics perspective. Again, if we turn MIP on this texture, this is where stuff gets really interesting. So if we go to this material, and we select the material, and we go to generate MIP and we click apply, what we will get is no more flickering with the AA, but as you can see, a different problem arises. So when I have my camera at this angle, it's fine. But as I turn my camera lower and lower, you can see at the far edges, it's kind of choosing an average color for whatever the is being rendered. And that average color is sometimes wrong. And the incorrect average color, it's just a little bit weird with the MIP maps. As you can see, it's probably more noticeable over the ocean area here, because you get it happening as a large band in the back, if you can see these different bands that have occurred. So if we turn the MIP maps off, right, we don't get the banding, because we get the kind of perfect pixel clarity, which again doesn't hurt our renderer because we're doing everything from a texture atlas. But if we then turn the fog on, you can shorten that, but as you can see, because it's now got this perfect clarity, it overwhelms the TAA, and you get this kind of miraging happening at the distance. So again, it's quite a lot of frustrating trade-offs, in the sense that you can go one way, but you get one set of trade-offs, and you go another way, and you get a different set of trade-offs. And it's really about trying to find which set of trade-offs is going to give us the best aesthetic condition. And I think this is also something that, like, when you're a gamer, you can get frustrated with games because you feel the graphics are limiting in certain ways, or they have certain settings that you can't turn off. But a lot of the time, it's actually the art style of that game is what is creating that limitation. And if they change the art style to allow those limitations to go away, you actually lose a lot of the performance. It's kind of the trade-offs these devs made, or those devs made at the time. So again, I think that's an important part of games dev, is that a lot of it is trade-offs. And the other thing is really just finding what works for you. In this situation, what I've been liking the most is I really do like the depth of field, to be honest. So if we go here and turn depth of field on, I do feel it just focuses the game and gives it a more cinematic feel. So what's cool about the cinematic feel is actually when you're using any grenade or anything that has a glow, and then you're in combat. So I'll actually show that right now. So we've got some freeze grenades, maybe we'll get some poison as well. I think my computer's struggling a bit here. Cool. So we go here. We're going to grab some poison grenades. Maybe top up on freeze grenades. Cool. Now, so you get this kind of satisfying distance vibe, but then we can come and we can get stuck into combat in the immediate play space, and that's all in full clarity. And then the kind of distance stuff only happens when you're bringing your camera down. So if you want to like look where you're going. And then I also find the slight blurring creates a little bit of intrigue where you maybe see a structure like a village in the distance, or in this case you see a mountain with some enemies on it, and that entices the player to actually jump up there. Hey Paul, what's up, bro? How you doing? Oh, there we go. Got them all at the same time. Fantastic. So yeah, I'm enjoying the tilt shift vibe. The other, obviously, so this is Gaussian depth of field. Yeah, so I've actually been trying fog with blur. That's one of the things I've been considering. So if we go to our lighting settings and we activate fog again. So this is a blue fog with the blur, as you can see. It expands the feeling of the sky, right? And definitely keeps things feeling very Octopath Traveler tilt shifty. But again, because I feel like you'd normally activate fog as a way to manage a lack of rendering capacity, whereas here it's literally like we can run the full game world in every direction with no fog. It doesn't hit the performance, so that's pretty cool. So, and I mean, like, this game world's pretty large, so there's something cool about being able to see that far into the distance. Um, and there's definitely a consideration of like, if we keep zones this size, that would be a feature of the game. Like anywhere you travel, you would have this ability to kind of see all the way from shore to shore. Like like as you'll notice, if I'm standing here, I can see Split City over there. In the far distance, I can see Port Ptolemy, and I can actually, if I tilt up here, I can see bits of the desert over there. If I look far into the distance, and all like very vaguely. I think it's really cool to be able to see that and then just walk in that direction and actually get there. Whereas if we fog it up, um, all of that just disappears into the blue fog. So you can still see Split City in the distance, so you're still getting that closer thing. Yeah, dude, don't spoil. Flying mounts are definitely something I'm thinking about. The real question for me is how you introduce, because like I'll put it this way, I know how I want to do flying mounts, which is I would increase the height of the player character's sprite above the tile they're over, and reduce the effect of collisions. So you would be able to fly over these rivers, fly over the mountain sections, and that would give a, I think, great sense of like three-dimensional flight in this game world. Now, in terms of when you award something like that, because obviously that's an incredibly powerful tool, right? So the question is, are flying mounts like an incredibly rare drop, or they're like a pretty rare drop that everyone can get hold of, but is still pretty late game? I lean towards more late game, because I feel like a lot of the early game has to, there's a certain progression that gets followed in the early game, and I feel if you, anyway, I'm distracting myself because check here. So as you can see here, I'm standing on this mountain and I can like look into the distance, and I feel this works quite well. But and again, you know what's cool is we can have the fog and all of this be options. So at the end of the day, because it's not affecting the rendering, I really think it's something we can allow players to choose. So here's the same view, but we've taken the fog away. So you can see, like, I can see Port Tall up there. I can get a full view. The only thing that I don't like is this flickering caused by the TAA. Again, I think I might be able to solve that with mip maps. I also might be able to solve it just by tweaking the TAA in the render settings. So there's definitely ways to mess with that. So that's kind of where my mind's at. Yeah, and then I think you can see how you can see further, and then obviously you can just turn the fog off completely, or the depth of field off completely, and you can just see the whole game world, which is also kind of crazy. And again, it's the TAA giving us that weird flicker. You can turn AA off, but then it gets a bit ugly. And fast approximate and all that have the same issues as no AA. And it's largely caused by the mip maps, but like maybe I tweak the mip map importing from Unity. Thanks, bro. Yeah, dude, I'm chuffed. It's coming together. But sweet dog, I'll chat you later. Hello, mom. I'm playing with depth of field and some camera settings and just seeing how they look. I quite like this. I think it gives a cinematic feel to the game, especially where like one mountain is in focus and another one isn't. I wonder how clear that's coming across on the stream. Like if I suppose you can see that, right? Blurry, not blurry. But yeah, I definitely think it does give a sense of depth to the game. So I have some good news. Even though I am immortal, I can finally eat. So if we go to these bread stalls, in fact, I can actually cook as well. So I might be able to catch and cook myself a meal. This might be a good time to show one of the gameplay loops that is complete now. Just get rid of the slime. I'm still immortal, so but I think I can finally enjoy the pleasures of regular food. Because if you look here, we have a cooking stove. Very exciting. Now if we go to our bank, do I have any uncooked fish? I do. So I'll deposit all of my grenades. And I will take, well, I need to leave one space open. So I need to fix that. It's a slight server-side tweak I need to make. But if I come over here, and then I click here, here is everything I could cook at the various levels and what their requirements are. So I have an inventory of guppies, so we can choose what we want to cook. Here are different recipes. So there's cooked meat, soups, kebabs, different curries, different roasts, and here's some miscellaneous ones: bread, cherry pie, beer, cake, pizza, 3 types of sushi, as well as elemental ale, which is a kind of IPA in my opinion. And here we have the guppy. So if I cook the maximum amount of guppies, I still need to change the terminology there from away from smelt. But I need to make some icons. So maybe I start with making some icons. And as you can see, because I am high enough cooking level, I shouldn't burn any of these. And this is my cooking skill. Currently it's using the survival skill icon. So I definitely think we need to make a cooking skill icon that matches. Maybe tweak survival, but I'm going to keep it for now. And yeah, so that is cooking. A little bit of glow coming off of the stove, the oven. And obviously you can come inside a house and the roof will actually come back. So if we zoom out, you can actually see an internal, obviously if my camera clips, it will dissolve the roof so we can see. But if we zoom in, we can actually stay nice and cozy inside. Oh, another change is, can you see the grenade is producing a kind of green flame? We thought that it would be a little bit better telegraphing if the grenade type indicated what type it was via its fuse, and the in-game reason for that is that different chemicals would cause a different kind of fuse burn, and that would make a lot of sense. So yeah, rather pleased with that. Seems to be coming together, and yeah. Yes, I want to show you. So not only can you cook food, but you can eat it. And as you can see, ooh, this is guppies. They only give me 1 health. Okay. But as you can see, the guppies that I eat are increasing my HP slowly if I stop getting attacked by large slimes. I probably need to make those large slimes non-aggressive. Normally slimes are generally quite aggressive, but I think the green ones are meant to be new player creatures that players are supposed to train on, so they probably shouldn't be killing you or harassing someone who's learning the game. And then if we go here, this is stealing from a bread store, which is what we did last time. And I think my thieving level is very low. Yes, level 1, so I'm going to struggle. But I should eventually get some bread out of here. Are you okay, Hannah? Ah, there we go. So we managed to steal 3 bread so far. And this is giving us some thieving XP. I wonder if I've leveled up yet. Not yet. Probably need to steal about 12 or 13 loaves before. But there we go. So we have managed to steal from the first amount. Awesome, so this is kind of the main gameplay updates, as well as the bloom that's been added to the grenades, and the trying out of different combinations of depth of field and fog. So I'm rather pleased with all of these changes so far. And the next thing I wanted to do is I wanted to just do some enemy animating. But there's actually another thing I had on my mind. I've just kind of lost my train of thought here. But, oh yeah, let me show you the blue grenades, the napalm, because it just looks pretty cool. So every grenade now, of course I'm gonna get harassed by slime. Okay, I really need to make the slimes non-aggressive. Okay, so every grenade, blue grenades have blue fuse, napalm, lifesteal, regular, and poison. So really chuffed with that. Think it's communicating a lot better. It's also now if you're in PvP and you see a grenade being hurtled towards you, you can actually tell what type you're going to get hit with a couple ticks before it actually happens. And it's pretty clear. Whereas I think Win and I were chatting, and basically he said that one of the problems was the green poison flames. Or when I was throwing poison grenades, I had orange flames on them, and the orange flames were essentially not communicating well enough to the player what was happening. Anyway, I'm going to use my immortality to win a fight I should not be able to win, because as you can see, these cactusins are pretty tough, but, you know, admittedly, they shouldn't be in this area. They're only in this area because I put them here to test if enemy range combat was working properly. And I think I've already regened the locations, whether or not here. So I think if I do 2 little changes, and I'll show these changes, we can see 2 behavioral changes to the server, so that might be fun to show. So we're going to go to our world server, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go into our enemy JSONs. We're going to go to our regular slime, it's just called slime, and we're going to change its aggressive pools. So I'm going to make this a bit bigger. So here you can actually see all of the enemy stats. So I'm going to change it from aggressive to non-aggressive. So this should stop those green slimes from attacking us. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to replace the locations for the cactusins. So this is one of the location JSONs. I'm going to replace the whole file. I actually have the updated file, so I'm actually just going to copy paste it, and you'll see the file change. So if I go to my Unity build, I have cactusin locations, and I'm able to just copy this, and then we go to our world server, and there we go. As you can see, some of the XY locations should have changed, And if I run the world server now, we will be able to see, because effectively those prickly boys should no longer be here. And these guys won't attack us. So there we go. These guys are non-aggressive, so that has worked. And there are no cactusins in the vicinity. So this is actually the slime spawn area. So this is the early game slime area, this is a great place to train, simply because these guys give quite a lot of XP. They actually give bonus XP relative to their combat level, specifically for early game. And yeah, you don't want to be just getting killed by cactusins while you're in the early game area. And then obviously they're no longer aggressive now. Every other slime type is aggressive. This is just these kind of opening slimes are not. So if we actually just go and take some food here, eat some bread while we travel. As you can see, as I eat the bread, my health ticks up there, and you can actually see my health update on my player character. And then here we go. We arrive, and all of these blue slimes will immediately attack me, and I have nice blurry mountains in the background. Okay. I think my defense, what defense? I've got 10 defense. Okay, so the blue slimes aren't doing a lot of damage if I have 10 defense. So this is pretty good training. See, I'm taking some damage. I should have brought more food. But this should also give me pretty good experience points. Yeah. Obviously, I have a very, very high range level because I artificially increased it on the server. Again, as you can see, this is the fog plus blur depth of field. Might be the better call, still not sure. Again, if we take the fog away, and maybe the answer is just pulling the fog back, but if we take the fog away, we get the kind of fully involved scene. So if I load in here, you can see how suddenly all of these mountains in the background are visible, and this mountain range is visible but more blurry than this mountain range, which is visible and closer, and then everything in focus is close. So as I kind of approach this mountain range, which is in the distance, it slowly comes into focus, and the previous mountain range stays out of focus, and then you're getting this sense of depth as you're traveling through the world. So I quite like that. It's very cinematic, and again, I do think if we just make it an option for players, you know, if you're a hardcore and you really want to know everything and have perfect sight everywhere, you can turn the tilt shift depth off. And the other option is to do a kind of, so this is Gaussian. I do think Gaussian's probably better for our game, but to do a kind of tilt shifted vibe like Octopath, where they have the blur on the bottom and the blur on top. Have played with that a little bit. It does look a bit weird, so I'll just show you guys because I'm talking about it. But if we go to depth of field here and we change it from Gaussian to bokeh, B-O-K-E-H, you'll see you get a band of blur at the bottom and a band of blur at the top. And this tends to make your game world look like a diorama. So, and you know, if you know your history of Final Fantasy, you'll know that the original creator always viewed the Final Fantasy games as dioramas. I think he actually has released his own indie diorama games recently, and I do think they're quite cool. But they're not what Final Fantasy is. I'm not criticizing. I like dioramas, but anyway, as you can see, the problem I have with the tilt shift, even though it looks nice at this angle, which is like the Octopath Traveler angle, is that if you go down, you get this blur that kind of dominates the bottom of the screen, and that becomes a problem specifically when I zoom in and my character blurs. It's like, okay, that's not what we want. So one option, of course, is to have the blur change dynamically as you zoom. Again, these are all options. Whereas if I blur to around this distance, it's fine. So maybe it's like one of those things where you do a focal length, where you have it sitting here. Yeah, not keen on that one. No, exactly. It's not It's not the best. I don't like the frontal blur. Whereas the Gaussian is just a distance blur. So everything that is close to the camera is in focus and it starts blurring from a set distance. I've set the start to 100. So basically the idea is everything, you can only click within a 48 by 48 tile grid of yourself. So everything that's outside your click range is a bit blurry. And me personally, I find that helps me sharpen, like as a gamer, what my play space is. Because if something's blurry, okay, it's out of the play space, and I just need to worry about what's in the play space. So that's just kind of a little bit of my logic there. And then it does also help visually pause these kind of massive scenes where you can see the entire game world, where if it's all in focus, it can be a little bit overwhelming. But yeah, that's kind of my long and short thoughts on blurs and bloom and depth of field. And again, it's all post-processing, so it is really stuff you can play with a lot. I would normally say you can almost get lost in these settings. Distance blurs, atmospheric perspective, so it's logical. Yeah. Well, what's interesting about it is that in a video game renderer, like in a game engine, you don't naturally get a distance blur. So you get this kind of unnatural, perfect focus at infinite distance, which you don't get in the real world. So ironically, not having a distance blur makes a world feel more artificial, and then adding the distance blur, that's why it tends to feel cinematic, is you're kind of combating that artificiality. So the next thing I wanted to do is I wanted to animate an enemy. I'm thinking of animating a goblin, because once I've got a kind of template for a goblin, we can animate a lot of them. So we've got our monsters. Okay, brilliant. So I think we're going to start with our Goblin Champion. Actually, no, let's start with the Goblin Berserker. He's a nice one. So the first thing that I'm going to do, and this is because of a new kind of rule that I'm following to help me with animating and aligning the characters. I'll explain the rule. Basically, the idea is that I always put the player character on the right-hand side of the canvas. So the player is here. So if the goblin is swinging his axe or attacking, they're attacking in this direction. The reason I do this is that if the player is actually on the opposite side, I have code that flips and detects it. But now obviously if the goblin was attacking here, they would attack the wrong direction. So the solution to that, quite simply, is we're going to flip the sprite. Wrong flip. Okay, and the other thing we're going to do is just pull this down a pixel, because we actually want the character to be standing on the ground. Possibly, yeah, I think probably down 2, so they're standing like this. The reason for this is, again, the quad that is projecting the pixel art onto the character in the 3D game is now touching the bottom of the game world, so the sprite art has to touch the bottom of the game world as well. I think that makes perfect sense. Cool, so now we're going to animate him. So the first thing I like to do when animating an idle animation is I'm going to set up 3 frames that are going to be the same kind of pacing, and then 3 frames that are going to be kind of compressed, and you'll see what I mean very soon. So these 3 we're going to keep at the base image, and then from frame 4 what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull, basically I'm going to find where shrinking the sprite is not going to do a lot of change to its outlook, and that's going to be here in this midsection. So if I pull them down, you can see the feel of the sprite doesn't change a lot, but what we get is we get this idle breathing motion, and then I copy that 3 times, and you get this up and down idle animation. So that's kind of my basis. Now with the goblin, what I want to do is I want to give his ears a bit of floppiness as he comes down and then up. So basically, as he comes down, I think we're going to have the ears stay up for 1 frame longer. There we go. And then as he comes up, we're going to have his ears stay down for 1 frame longer. And we'll clean it up in a second. Brilliant. So that's a subtle like offsetting of the main animation theme. The main theme being this idle breathing motion. And what we're just doing is we're just bringing a little bit of extra motion in at the ears just to add a little bit of personality. Doesn't cost us a lot. And now, look at our idle with the ears. Oh, they're fantastic. I love it. Marguerite, come check this.
Oh wow, that looks so cool.
With the ears, yeah.
Yes.
And now we can keep that kind of base structure of his breathing for all of the other animations. So when he attacks, when he runs, he's going to keep this base motion, and we can just extend that map forward. Cute little gobbo. Cool. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do our run animation. So what I'm going to do is I have to copy through this entire animation. It's always so time consuming. There's probably a better way to do this. I'm just waiting for someone to tell me. Now we should have 2 cycles. There we go. So now in the second cycle, so I'm going to block this off for a loop. So if I go set loop here, we're going to now animate the running. Running, I follow a pretty simple formula. Basically, we lift the foot, then we lift the leg. And then we go back to a lifted foot. So foot, leg, foot. Now we swap. Foot, leg, foot. There we go. So the real question here, because this is what I've been doing to the other sprites, is the goblin should probably, their feet should probably look like that, right? I think it makes the most sense if they're going to run. Basically, the humans and goblins used to have these kind of outsplayed toes, and that made more sense when they were stationary icons. But the transition to 2.5D has just meant that there has to be a little bit more uniformity. And I think doing this, as you'll see, is going to make the walking look a lot less silly. Now, you'll notice that I did keep that silliness for the frogs. And my reasoning is it works with the frogs because it gives them an amphibian quality where the kind of floppiness of their feet, I think, mirrors the fact that they have flippers. Or another way of thinking about it is, have you ever seen a person run in flippers? Anyway, now if we do the run animation, this looks a lot better. Fantastic. So now I'm going to copy this run animation out because I'm going to use the copy later. Cool. So that should just be another run. Yep. And then we are going to copy the idle animation this time, and we're going to use the idle animation's motion, the breathing, in conjunction with a slashing attack. Three, four. Okay, perfect. So if I set that on a loop section, we now have our repeated idle animation, and basically we normally want to attack on frame 4, and that basically means we're going to, what I normally do is I'll lift the weapon, indicating something's going to happen. Then in this one, we'll actually spin the weapon. So we rotate it 90. This represents the attack. So we'll obviously clean this all up when we're ready. So part of the cleanup is going to be hello, Hannah. Maybe a slightly darker tone, something like that. I think we made a mistake. So then he's going to hold this pose for 1 frame. And then what we're going to do, so 1, 2, 3. And then this is the frame it's going to come down on. Actually, I think we're going to hold it for 3. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy this little configuration. Oopsies. Copy that little configuration here. And we're going to have this configuration exist on this slightly smaller version. In fact, maybe the easiest way to do that is to conclude this one like this. Just copy the whole thing. Oops, actually, let's do this. And then we're going to shrink this. Oops. And then we're going to shrink this. I see the problem. 1, 2, 3. I think we can make it work. So these ears need to go up. And then these 2 frames just need 1 change, which is this needs to go down 1. Because he bent his knees when he did the attack. And then everything should actually work out perfectly. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then here we're going to add the Sakuga of the actual attack. So let's check. And then we just fill in the blanks. Make sure everything's consistent. And now we can watch. There we go. Perfect. Okay, there's a slight inconsistency. This goes down. There we go. Fantastic. As you can see, we worked out the inconsistencies after we kind of got the general idea of the animation down. We also focused on worrying more about the expressiveness of the kind of the body and less about uh, any particulars about, you know, shirt length or pant length or whatever. And again, if you think of it from a Disney animating perspective, it's a little bit of stretch and pull to get the point across. And I think we get the point across, and this looks like a angry goblin who's attacking you, and I think that is exactly what we wanted. What I am thinking about is maybe whether these pixels need to go. Uh, so maybe the axe is obscuring it. Probably not, eh? Because it would be gone there as well. So if we took those away. Maybe. Maybe. I guess probably makes sense just keeping the arm in line where it is, and the axe would technically obscure it in that situation. So I'm gonna keep it. I'm gonna go with it. Cool. So this is our full animation. Idle, run, axe. That's actually pretty cute. Uh, I'm rather pleased with this already. Idle, run, axe, cute goblin. Fantastic. So now we want to put a death one in. So very easy. Bring it to the end. Step 1. Ghost form. There we go. And then here's our full animation. So with this set, and we kind of pre-define and pre-prescribe the what frames do what. Basically, the first 30 frames of a sprite sheet are booked for the idle, run, walk, attack, and death animations. Anything we want after the first 30 frames, I can add after the fact. But this basically concludes constructing this sprite sheet. So then I can quite simply just export this. Let's make sure we're going to not export it as a GIF. We're going to export as a sprite sheet. We're going to go with the 6x5. And we're going to call this Goblin is it Berserk or Berserk? I'm losing my mind. Yeah, I definitely misspelled it the first time. Cool. So this is the Goblin Berserker. We're going to export that. That is going to drop this directly into Unity. As you can see here, we have the sprite sheet in there, and we actually drop it straight into enemy animations. And the enemy animations, as you can see, is kind of where we store the main sprite sheets. I'll just show, there it is. So I have to just adjust that, and then we'll make sure it has the correct import settings. There we go. I guess probably the next thing to do would be to get this guy in game so we can play with him. So I think that's kind of going to be our next steps. So that is the kind of main body animating. Now we can go to our enemy generator. So make sure that we have the Goblin Berserker added to the sprite system. There we go. Now what we can do is make sure we got the correct stats. So I'm going to get the correct stats from the old game. So we go documents. Ah, silly me. So we never actually stored these in JSONs. They were only stored in actual Unity objects. Kind of better. I can now show the entire old project and we can look at the stats directly. Here we go. So first things first, we type in Goblin Berserker. Here it is. And there are the stats. So we're going to use those when generating our new Berserker Goblin, which is going to be perfect. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to minimize this, go here. So we're going to go here. Now, why am I using a scene to kind of populate this object data? I'm doing this because it'll auto-generate the systems that I need for the server as well, which are basically a bunch of specifically created JSONs. So we're going to go Goblin Berserker. This one looks quite angry. He's got an axe. So if we check our stats, which is just slightly off screen for you, but on screen for me, we have got 15 strength, 1 ranging, 1 psychic, 5 accuracy, 1 defense, so nice and easy to hit, 10 health. I mean, these guys should be aggressive. They are, definitely. And they will aggro you from 4 tiles away, attack you with 1, have an attack speed of 4. They are level 4. I'm going to give 14 XP because they're one of our bonus XP creatures. And then we're going to go with our classic 25, 15, 25, 15, 45, 25. Yeah, that's it. That's all the stats we need to put in for the Goblin Berserker. Hit create. There we go, that should have generated, so we can see we get a console log there. And the next step is actually to place him. So we use our enemy location generator for that, and we use a location placement system. So save this quickly. So first things first, we're going to open up our world map. Open this with a sprite. So what this is our collision data map for this zone. And if we zoom in, you'll see there are these different colored tiles. Each tile represents a spawn point. Each color represents a different type of enemy. And this is how we can place the enemies into the game. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at where were the berserkers placed originally, and we'll honor that placement to some degree. So if we go over here and we type in Goblin Berserker, Goblin, here we go. Now we can see where they're all placed. Okay, fantastic. All of the Goblin Berserkers are sprinkled around this area here. That's kind of great. Makes them nice, tight enemy to deal with. Now what we need to do is we need to choose a hex code. So we're going to close this. And I'm going to go to my hex code sheet. On the sheet I have got kind of all the hex codes we've used for various enemies. I've used a lot of greens, so I don't want to use a green for a goblin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use an orangey red color because he's a berserker. Let's see. So if we go here, let's pick a nice one. So we'll get one of these kind of orangey reds. I think that's quite nice. Okay, cool. So copy the hex code, put it in the sheet. And now it is literally this simple. So we selected the color. I've added it to the sheet because we're going to use it later. And then remember we were looking, it's all in this kind of zone sprinkled across. So now we can slowly, place these enemies as we saw them. And I guess the kind of idea here is that these are the berserkers that have come from Port Haven, which is a goblin sanctuary. And they are up here doing battle with some of the frog people from Three River Fort. So there's definitely a little bit of that going on. Cool. So that looks like the correct number of spawns in the correct locations. So if I zoom in a bit, you can see they're sprinkled across all of these trees, sitting a little bit south of Three River Fort, where all of the frogs would be preparing for mortal combat with their goblin foes. Sweet. So save that. Now we can switch back to our Unity scene. And in our location generator, you'll see it already references the map, and you'll remember the code we chose. So we're just going to go and grab that hex code. So if we grab that hex code and we come back here, and we just add it as the 24th entry, you'll notice that in JSON's enemies, which is our enemy generated JSONs, we have now got this 24th entry. So what this hex code does is it matches or links to the enemy ID automatically from what has been pre-generated. So without further ado, I think all I have to do is hit play, and this should generate our JSONs. Fantastic. Now we have this file as well. And the final step to be able to, or well, not the final step, like probably second to last, but we'll do this step right now. Now that we've generated these two files, we're going to go back to our world server. So this is our world server. And we're going to open this folder. And then we're going to take the goblin locations, paste them in. So you should see them appearing in a second. There we go, they just appeared. And then we're also going to copy the Goblin Berserker enemy definition. And that should, when we rerun the server, it should detect all of that and add Goblin Berserker server side. So we know that's handled there. And our final steps are going to just be some client-side preparation. So we're going to go to our main scene. Well, actually, first we're going to set up the enemy prefab. So the prefab auto-generates here, but it's just missing one thing, which is the material. So you will recall that we created this enemy animation. Now, each animation, every enemy gets a enemy material. So if I go to materials, I have enemy materials, and then here are all of the materials. I can just copy one. I'll just duplicate the slime material, rename it Goblin Berserker, or let's make it one word. And then I can just change here. We'll just go back to our enemy animation. It's Colbin. Sorry, I misspelled that. That's hilarious. Okay, I'm just going to rename this here. Fantastic. So if we go back to our enemy prefab, we can now assign the material we just created. And then if we look at the actual prefab, we now see the goblin animation, everything is in place, all of these main things are handled, and as you can see, because we use the standardized 30 frames for the animation, where it goes, you know, idle, run, attack, run, or idle, walk, attack, run, death, these are kind of preset into this enemy generation system. So now that we have that object done, we are in the final stretches. What's really great is this really is the full loop for adding new enemies to the game. And again, this is what a solo developer in probably under an hour can effectively just add new enemy content to an MMORPG. I think it really streamlines your ability to focus on the gameplay, such as the dungeons, the balance, what the mobs are doing in conjunction. Really gives you time to playtest when the actual, creative part can be the focus rather than the engineering part. So if we go here, all we have to do is in our enemy manager, we now add the enemy we just created so that our client can recognize when there are goblins nearby. And then finally, I rerun the world server. First things first, yep, 25 different enemy types, 457 enemy instances. So if we make this full screen and we head into the forest, there they are. Ah, you can see them already. Yeah, as you can see, the goblins in the forest. And these guys are aggressive. Oh, they're cute. I love the ears. It's gonna come hit me. Ow. Leave me alone. Oh, this is great. They're quite weak, so I think I should pretty much be one-shotting most of these guys. Ooh. But they are aggressive, and that's part of their cuteness. What I'm seeing is there a little bit of strangeness with the So this is interesting, and this is a fun little place that I can dispense some knowledge. So can you see how the shirt is being a little bit weird here with the pixel art? So this is actually because of the import settings on the sprite sheet. So what's cool about that is if I just go here to the enemy animations place, and we go here, there you go. So you can see compression is set to normal quality. When you're dealing with pixel art, you should actually turn the compression off, because the pixel art is not going to cost you anything. You see the difference? Crazy. So the pixel art is not going to cost you anything, like performance-wise, because again, this is a 24 by 24 pixel canvas. You can think of it like your graphics card is the limiter there, and the determining factor a lot of the time is your VRAM. So if you have gigs of VRAM, images are really not costing you anything. So you don't need to compress them, is what I'm saying. And why? Because you want that kind of clarity on what you're actually seeing. Also, I think the depth of field is working quite nicely, especially when I tilt my camera up like this and I can see the background, but I'm focused on the gameplay in front of me. Well, I think this was rather successful. Let's take these guys out with some AoE. Obviously, I'm in cheat mode, but I think I'm going to go and heal. But yeah, I think I'm rather pleased with that. Not only do we now have a completed goblin in the game, but we have a template for all of our goblins. So what's quite awesome is that a large amount of the Jericho, well, not a large amount, but there's a fair amount of goblins in Jericho. So what's great is I can kind of extend the base structure that we've developed now to all of those and just get those in game one by one. Oh, something I also haven't shown off on stream, which I might show off now before I end it, because I think I'm going to end stream pretty soon, but is in the bank you can just reposition anything very easily. And I know that sounds like it should be obvious, but for the longest time when we launched Damascus, we didn't have a way to kind of reorganize your bank without withdrawing items and then depositing them in a specific order, which is kind of hilarious. But yeah, so that functionality is completely in, and it is also obviously in the inventory. So if you want to reorg your inventory, you can. And a nice little quality of life I kept is that when you drag something, you can see a grayed out version of it where it was, and then when I drag it to a new position, it'll swap with that position. So yeah, super happy with that. Thanks for being on stream and chatting a bit and seeing what's cooking, and yeah, I just wanted to kind of get on, do a little goblin animation, have a little bit of fun, and yeah, might go on later. Definitely going to be on this weekend. Thanks for watching. Have a good one, guys. Cheerio. Oh, is that a working inventory and bank? Yes, it is. Just as I'm going, so I'll hang around and chat and answer any of your questions. Video game cat. And not only is the inventory and bank working, but all of this is fully live multiplayer. So I can, if I build it out, I can actually show you another character walking around. Maybe I'll do that real quick. But yeah, full-on bank system, full-on inventory, equipment works. All of this is level gated, so I'm wearing the weakest armor and stuff just because I'm strong enough. So you check, I can't equip the bronze spear because I'm not high enough level, but I can equip the copper equipment, axe and that. And check here, if you're a RuneScape fan, don't hang around on my account. I'm just Sunday progress. Ah, thanks so much, man. Really appreciate it. Yeah, no, just putting pedal to the metal, right? Also, I find when it comes to any creative act, like, and I think people don't say this enough about coding or game dev, when you're inspired, it's very easy to work, but there are periods of lots of inspiration and then periods where kind of there's a bit of a lull. So I'm kind of very inspired at the moment, and I'm just kind of riding the wave, if that makes sense. But yeah, thanks so much. Really appreciate the kind words. And I do actually want to show this. I want to see if this works. So if I do this, I want to build quickly. This will be the last thing I do, and then I'm gonna go have lunch. Yeah, dude, you've always got to use the momentum. That's like, and I think that's one of the things that probably modern work culture doesn't get very well, in the sense that we're kind of expected to go to a job 9 to 5, do things to a specific routine. But if you're doing something that has a kind of creative component to it, that can get very draining. And I think, like, especially if you're doing something like indie game dev, it's like you just gotta forgive yourself and allow yourself to have those lulls. So do I need to make a new screen to show this? I think I do. Actually, this is what I'll do. I'll use this one. Okay, cool. So I'm logged into the game here. And then what I'll do is I will log in here. Let's see how my PC holds up. That's going to be the fun part. I can feel it chugging. The fans are turning on. Okay. Oh, there we go. Fantastic. So, if you check here, you can see myself and this other character that I got logged on. And if I walk around, you can actually see we've got full synchronization of multiple players, and I can go and start fighting this bandit, and then you can actually watch the combat. And over here, I can see this, and not only that, I can jump in and help my friend. So the entire game world is collaborative combat, and what we mean with collaborative combat is that it's all multi-combat in the sense that multiple people can fight like this against one enemy, and then any drops or rewards are appropriately split. So there's kind of two types of drop versions, if that makes sense. So there are common drops. So if two people fight an enemy, everyone gets a common drop. You'll always get a common drop. And then there's rare drops, and rare drops will always be split based off contribution in the fight. So if I did 60% of the damage and you did 40%, I'd have a 60% chance at hitting the rare drop table. You'd have a 40% chance, but we'd both get common drops always. So the idea there was we really wanted to make people feel like there's a benefit to fighting together, rather than opposing each other and having this kind of hyper competitive environment. So the idea there really is essentially common drops are a reward that everyone gets, and then rare drops are split proportionately. So it's also a scenario where there's never unfairness if you do work together. But cool, yeah. Thanks for watching. Thanks for saying some questions and jumping on. And yeah, that rocks actually. Thanks so much. I really appreciate it. Have a great day. Follow if you can. Yeah. it's Friday, so like I think everyone should be in good moods, and the weekend's coming up, and I'm definitely gonna stream more over the weekend. So yeah, have a good one, everyone. Shot for watching the stream. Cheerio.